Welcome to Stand-Up Comedy Sex Ed. It's where you can get questions answered like,
how long does it take the average man to orgasm?
And
how long does it take the average woman to orgasm?
And also,
why is it so hot in here?
Audiences agree it's brilliantly funny. Raylene makes sex ed fun. This show is entertaining, factual, and relatable.
There's nothing worse than being halfway done with sex and feeling your vagina shut down on you.
You've got to see Stand-Up Comedy Sex Ed.
I am ready to go do that comedy show. Hey everybody, welcome to season 2 of the Stand-Up Comedy Sex Ed podcast hosted by Raylene Taskoski and some other guest. And today's guest is known as Spanish Janice. Could you have made a bigger tongue tie name? She is a court-certified Spanish interpreter, a voiceover artist, a yoga instructor, an author, an inspirational speaker, and we met on the internet. So let's just see how this goes.
Welcome to 2021.
Exactly. I love how we met. There was a random post and someone had said, is it normal for your guests not to share your podcast? They were upset because their guests weren't sharing their podcast. And I said, and I just kind of chimed in and I said, well, it's normal for me because people want to talk about sex, but they don't want their moms to know they're talking about sex. And I've had plenty of people like just come on anonymously, first names, or like if you scroll through all of my shows, you'll see some of them just have my logo. Those are people that don't want everybody to know who they are. Like,
yeah,
just, yeah. So, and then you said, I want to be on your podcast. And I was like, we talk about sex, right?
Well, here's the thing. I, for the past 8 years, have been all about walking through my biggest fears, and talking about sex is probably on the very high end of that list. So whenever I see something that gives me that pit in my stomach and kind of like that, no, let's not go there. That's when I go, I need to go there. So when I saw your thing, and even the way that you answered was really great. Like I just instantly liked your answer. And I'm like, oh my gosh, that's a good point. Like I could see people really wanting to talk about this subject, but then also because I struggled a lot with people pleasing, like I'm a recovering people pleaser. So to feel like, oh yes, I'm going to put this out there for my mom and my friends and family and, professionally or whatever to see, I could see how that would be intimidating and, it's scary.
Right. And if afterwards you decide that's too much, you'll just be Janice.
Right, exactly.
I'm aware that not everybody is as open as I am. It just is what it is. But the more we talk about sex, the less of a power we give the conversation. Or the more power, whatever it is. We take away that stigma where we all have to pretend that we do not really enjoy sex.
Right. Or have it or think about it or whatever.
Have it. Or some people really don't enjoy it. And then we can kind of flesh out why. Because you're supposed to.
Right.
So welcome to Stand-Up Comedy Sex Ed. I ask, after we chat for a little while, I ask a series of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, like 6 or 7 nosy questions, which you can opt out of if you don't want everybody knowing your business. But that is kind of the point of the podcast. Actually, let's start with an easy one. Can you think of any funny sex stories that you have?
Funny?
Something that happened during sex that was unexpected that you now laugh about, or laughed about that.
Oh my gosh. See, this is why I knew this was going to be good for me, because I've been so serious about this component of sex and sexuality in my life, because it has been kind of a more painful subject. Mm-hmm. And so to shift and find the funny or find the lighthearted in it is what I want to do. And so, but it's interesting because as soon as you ask that question, my mind just goes to like blank. I'm like, wait, funny? It's serious. It could be amazing. It could be scary. But I'm trying to think of anything funny that has actually happened to me.
Well, the easiest ones that people don't even ever think about, and I think it probably happens to 90% of women, is when you fart during an orgasm or during sex. Right? That's just
Well,
funny.
is that the same as the queefing concept?
You know what? It probably can be. And honest to God, this sounds weird because I hear about queefing all the time. And I think it happened like with my ex-husband once, but that is not a thing that has ever happened to me, or at least not enough that's ever made a difference. And I don't know why.
Interesting, because for me that would be more of the thing. I don't remember ever farting, or like
You'll remember it if you fart.
Yes. And like I just watched this funny, you know how they have those compilations of funny videos, and this guy was weightlifting and they're filming him because it's like the most weight that he's ever lifted or whatever, and he totally farts and it's hilarious. So I think I would have remembered that and no, but the queefing thing, that does happen more often than not for me.
Yeah.
So what is that it doesn't happen to you?
I have no idea. I know it has to do with air. I do remember one time my ex-husband was down there, and he was not big on oral favors, and we were young when we got married. We're like, I was 18, he was 19. And so he was down there like doing a full-on exam, like, what's this do? What's that? Like poking all the bits. And he just kind of went into it, and it went right back out at him. And I just lost it. I was dying. And he's like, what was that? And I'm like, well, you blew it a kiss. It blew it right back at you. Like, I don't know what you want me to do about this.
Kissing you back.
But that was never a big, he was never a big fan of that. I don't know. Maybe I just don't get wet enough for it to happen. Maybe there's not enough air. Maybe it's because we have always used condoms. I haven't got a clue. But that is one thing that has not traditionally been an issue for me. But the farting thing, that is. and I don't know why. Like, he hears my tummy grumbling, and then he's like, hey, this seems like a good night to bounce on her belly and see what happens.
That's great.
So, and one of my stand-up jokes, it's like, sometimes you have to decide whether you're going to let it go or let it fly. Like, you either have to fake an orgasm so you don't fart, or you're just like, I'm going to fart during this orgasm.
Okay, see,
all there is to it.
Then it might be a control thing, which is why it doesn't happen to me, because I could see myself wanting to be very in control of that. Right. Although, I mean, I will let loose and I enjoy my orgasms, but I could see that being a control type of a situation.
Yeah. Well, then you would just choose not to have the orgasm at that moment. So that's some people's choice. Me, I'm going to take the orgasm every single time. Are you in a long-term relationship?
So yes, I've been with my boyfriend now for 7 years.
Okay.
And before that, I was married for 14 years. And that's why the whole sex and sexuality thing is so interesting in my mind, is because I was raised in the church, which just that,
fucks you up.
What'd you say?
Which fucks you up.
Thank you.
We have covered that at length on this podcast. I've had purity culture people on. I've had just other people raised in the church, good girls don't.
Right.
But the best ones do.
It's that. And then I think my main thing actually was my dad. So we were missionaries in Mexico, which is how I became a Spanish interpreter, because I just fell in love with the language and all of that and the people. But we lived down there and as missionaries. And then I find out when I'm 16 that my dad was actually gay and living this whole double life. So that's why sexuality is especially confusing and scary to me, because the man who was like, my idol, and I put him up on a pedestal, was just not who he said he was. That's why I'm so drawn also to authenticity. Like, I love talking to you because you show up and you are who you are. Like you said, hey, this is my background and this is my office and all of that. I love that. I actually crave that, because to to have something be a lie or, just something that is, you're told one thing and it's actually something completely opposite from somebody that you trust the most or respect the most, that's where that shift kind of happened for me. So when I found that out when I was 16, I instantly just put it in the back of my head, like as humans do, where we act like it's like la 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 la, that never happened, and kind of live in denial about it. But it impacts us. Those things impact our decisions, our subconscious from that moment forward. So I actually right then kind of morphed into a tomboy because sexuality scared me. All of that was just scary and uncertain. So I'm like, that's the weird thing now that I'm caught in between, because I didn't deal with it back then.
Right.
The fact that I actually wanted to be feminine and I wanted attention from boys and I wanted to be the pretty girl. Deep down, that's what I wanted, but it was scary. So I pretended I didn't want those things. And I pretended to be one of the guys, baggy clothes, no makeup. I would watch my friends get ready, putting on their makeup, looking beautiful. I would watch them get the attention from boys and the catcalls and stuff, and feel so jealous and so insecure. Yet the comfort zone, that safety that I felt of, if I'm a tomboy and nobody thinks I'm attractive, then I don't have to worry about sexuality. I don't have to worry about that stuff. So that was kind of my growing up.
Do you think that maybe in the back of your head, because you just found out your dad was gay, that you questioned everything that you thought about yourself, and that's why you decided to hide?
Oh yeah. Well, because you start thinking, well, if I can't trust my dad, then I can't trust myself, because I had trusted him and I thought he was one thing, and especially being so drastically different, from a missionary where you're preaching these things
that you will go to hell if you are gay, but also being gay,
but also doing it behind everybody's back, and it being, it was just so confusing that my little brain and heart, I feel like, couldn't wrap around it. And a lot of times those things aren't really talked about in the church. So even though people knew that was kind of going on in the leadership with my dad, it was never really addressed with us kids. It was like, oh, we're just going to sweep that under the carpet too. And, oh, they're going to counseling now, so it should be okay.
I'm guessing at this point, they're not still married.
They're not, but they divorced. Then they got remarried. Then they got divorced again because my mom, tended toward enabling and codependency, which is what I also adopted in my marriage. And so that's also a very interesting story with my marriage, because I basically experienced the same thing with my ex-husband as I did with my dad, where he was somebody and saying that he was somebody that he was not at the beginning, and was addicted to porn behind my back for like 4 years of our marriage. So it was this repeating of patterns.
Right.
And this,
Is your dad happily living as a gay man now?
My dad's very interesting because I still don't feel like I know him very well. And I think it's because he doesn't really know himself very well. So he goes to a Lutheran church where there's a gay pastor, and I don't know what he does as far as his sexuality at this point. I mean, he's in his 70s probably. And I don't care to ask him, honestly.
I just feel like I have to say this many times on my podcast. You can be gay and still love God. It's the other people that are judging you. It's not God. And I've said this, maybe I haven't said it in 4 or 5 podcasts. It's time to throw it back out there again. I do not believe that God gave us these fantastic bodies and these fantastic minds and these fantastic ways to enjoy each other in love and in sex, and then said you can only do it one way or I won't love you.
Right.
So that's, I mean, my whole family is very born again Christian, and they're not pro my opinion on God, but I also don't have to live in their judgment. I don't care.
Exactly. And that's what's beautiful, is being able to step away from judgment and live our own lives and be authentic in our own ways. And that's what I appreciate. You know, I mean, I have my own thoughts about things, but I never want to put that on somebody else and say, you have to fit into my box of what I think it needs to look like.
Yeah. If you don't do it my way, it's not the right way.
Right.
And then somebody posted this the other day and I thought it was really funny. She said, what, if you disagree with another Christian and they say, oh, well, I'll pray for you. She goes, is that offensive? And I'm like, yeah, that's kind of like, I'm going to tell God on you.
Praying for you. Cause oh my God, that's just, yeah, that sounds a little judgmental to me.
It's a lot judgy. You can get away with a lot. I'm not judgmental about a lot, but if you wear like pajamas and slippers to Target, then I'm judging you hard. That's where I draw the line. I'm like, you must have clothes at home. Even crappy sweatpants, but please stop wearing your SpongeBob SquarePants flannel jammies to the Target.
I don't know, man. I'm all about, if you want to be comfortable, hey, be cozy, like right now I have PJ pants on. I look super professional up here, not so much down there.
It's fine at home. I don't want to see your SpongeBob jammies at the Target. That's my only real. It was funny because I was flying back from visiting my daughter the other day, and I'm in the airport at BWI, and there's this very young girl, and I would guess maximum of 21 years old, maximum. And she's got a 2.5-year-old child with her and like a 3-month-old. And she is wearing leopard print bike shorts and a leopard print sports bra in the airport. And, I'm judging hard. I'm like, where are your clothes? You're in an airport. Do you know how many points on your body are touching the chair, the seat, the everything, and, like whatever. And I'm sitting there and I'm texting my daughter being kind of a bitch about it. And then I realized that she's also cold because it's 61 degrees in Baltimore and she's obviously on her way somewhere. You could, so I know for a fact this girl did not get on the airplane in those clothes, like from Baltimore. And she looked really cold. So I went over and I gave her my travel blanket. So I'm kind of an asshole, but I'm also, I'm like a Sour Patch Kid. Like at first I'm sour, but then I'm sweet.
I like that though. See, you were looking out for her.
And then also I made sure that she got on the family boarding because I also became aware that she was not speaking English that well. So then I was like, no, you have to get on right here. And I was like,
oh. And then she became your best friend.
No, she kept my blanket. She wasn't even wearing it. She got off the airplane and I didn't ask for it back, but I just thought it was funny.
Oh my gosh, she kept it.
Well, I could have gone up to her afterwards, when we got off the plane. She was standing there and I could have been like, blanket, but I was like, just keep it. Remember that time somebody did something nice for you. And then sort of trash talked you on her podcast, but whatever.
She'll never know.
Probably not. Like I said, English was not her first language.
Right.
All right. So if you think of a funny sex story, you have to share it later. Okay. How old were you when you had your sexual debut? And by that, I mean, when did you have sex for the first time on purpose?
Okay.
Your parents are not going to listen to this.
Are we talking about oral sex or actual penetration?
Well, sex? You can define it however you want.
Well, because we were good Christian kids, we did pretty much this is my ex-husband because we were childhood sweethearts basically, or high school sweethearts. So we did everything that you could do except for actual penetration. And so,
Until you got married.
Until we got married. And
Okay.
that being said, I was 20 and he was 19.
Yeah. A lot of Christian kids get married real young. Because
Yes.
you gotta have sex. And then they get divorced right after that.
We're basically told to. I remember the pastor of the church saying, you guys either need to break up or get married. Those were our two options.
Oh. Because they figured at some point you were going to do the naughty.
Yes.
Yeah.
Which now I'm so about people waiting to find themselves and figure out what they like. And especially because I was so codependent that I feel like if I would have had that time just on my own, I would have been able to,
right,
see who I was, like what I liked, what I wanted, instead of morphing myself into becoming what one person wanted me to be, which is what happened.
Yeah, that is another one of those problems. I'm pro masturbation. I'm pro teaching kids to masturbate as soon as they figure out they have fingers at the end of their hands. That's I mean, maybe that's a little aggressively young, but they're doing it anyway.
Well,
I think
that's funny about masturbation, because I remember, so when I was in Mexico, so I must have been 12, maybe. And I remember there was it was a Christian school that we were a part of, but there was a sex kind of component to it where I'm sure it was Christian based, but it talked about masturbation. And it said something about using a pillow, using a teddy bear. And I was like, oh, using a teddy bear, that's a great idea. But it was the first time it put into words what this thing was. I didn't even know what that was until I read that. And I'm like,
progressive church.
What was that?
That's a pretty progressive church, because usually they're like, that's the devil's doorbell, don't touch it.
Well, yeah, it was a book. It was something it wasn't, but I know that it was a Christian author. I'm sure they wouldn't have given us something otherwise, but it was kind of explaining it, and it wasn't saying it was good or bad. I don't remember that part. It was just explaining what it was. And I was like, oh, that's what that is. Okay.
Right. I have this kind of side joke story thing where it talks about masturbation, and in the Bible, I think it was Paul, and he said it is better for a man to spill his seed in the belly of a whore than to spill it on the ground, right? And so that's everybody's thing where they say, the God says don't masturbate, and I'm like, well, first of all, that's not what that says, but second of all, we don't spill a seed, so women are out of that one. We can masturbate all we want. God put our clitoris right on the outside where we could find it really easily, riding a horse, shimmying up the monkey bars at school, like all kinds of things. It never says women can't masturbate. It says the guy should not spill their seed. Like,
okay, I didn't even know where that came from. I just learned something new.
I think it was Paul who said that.
And that was New Testament?
Yeah.
Yeah, it must have been.
Yep. But that's just like one little weird thing. And I remember hearing that somewhere. It's like better to spill it in the belly of a whore than on the ground. And
that just sounds wrong.
It does sound wrong. It sounds wrong on every single level. And who knows? It could be one of those Bible verses that go around that aren't really a Bible verse. Somebody just said it, like the golden rule. Everybody's like, that's biblical. No, it's not. Somebody just made that shit up and we've been passing it around.
Right. Well, I'm gonna have to look into that.
Actually, I should Google it right now.
I know. I was just thinking about that.
I do that all the time while I'm on this podcast. Spill seed whore. Here, no, there it is. Spill seed on the ground. Let's see what it says. Nope, that's not the one. That's a different one. I'm gonna type in whore. One of my friends said that feet is actually a euphemism for penis in the Bible.
What?
Yeah. And basically they were talking about oral sex, and okay, it's not spelling. Now, see, this is going to make it difficult for me. Maybe it's not really exactly what I thought it was. Oh, whatever. It's in there somewhere.
That's funny. I was gonna type I was gonna put masturbation in here. It's like masturbation effects on kidney, masturbation affects hair, masturbating side effects. Oh, that's funny.
Huh. There's actually somebody, I'm not the only one who has ever heard this, because somebody else was looking forward to it also.
So maybe it's like one of those wives' tales that goes around and it's not.
It could be. Yeah, because I'm not finding it. Either way, I'm a big fan of masturbating.
Well, see, God probably doesn't care that much. It's not a thing.
Right. It's not, no. I mean, the whole Song of Solomon is nothing but one big love letter to somebody's lover.
Right.
And it's all about sex. You just got to learn to read between the lines. How come they were always making us dissect poetry in like high school and college, but not dissect the Song of Solomon? That would have been a much more exciting English class.
Totally. Well, I wonder what it is about sex that makes it so, because of the pleasure aspect, or the thing of, should it just be for procreation, and like that's what makes it so this kind of a topic?
Because men trying to control women. They have always tried to control all of that. We've always been locked down. We've been hid down, the chastity belts and the not allowed to be with anybody, and placing some sort of value on virginity. And you couldn't be a wife unless you were a virgin, and you got traded for cows. They turned us into chattel is what they did. And so that turned us into having to be virtuous, so that, when you were a 13-year-old girl and you were sold to a 50-year-old man for 72 cows, you had to have been a virgin. And that shit just carried on. It's always been about control.
Oh my gosh. And that's so sad, because I truly believe it is something beautiful. I mean, I've experienced this intimacy and being myself, I guess, especially with my boyfriend of 7 years. This is because I've gotten to know myself better, and I love myself way more than I ever have. And I'm more comfortable in my own skin. It's like with him, it's this really cool thing that I don't feel ashamed of. We're not married, so.
No, but you're in a committed relationship.
Right. But we're in a committed relationship. And I think part of, with my ex-husband, the problem was that he did not get to explore his own sexuality. And he was, same thing, put very much corralled into this one way. So in his mind, he started going down more the like fantasy path, because he felt like he couldn't actually do those things in real life. But that impacted our entire relationship, because sex with me, he wasn't really with me. It's like his mind was somewhere else, or we would actually talk about other things, other people. It was everything except being there with me. And that's part of my not feeling good enough, was just like, am I not enough? Just me, us together, is this not fulfilling? And so then when I moved out of that relationship and into one where I felt seen and valued, and like he was right there with me, and his mind wasn't thinking about this woman naked or whatever other things, it was with me. And that to me is beautiful. For me personally.
I'm glad you got that. I'm glad you didn't just stay stuck with somebody forever. When did you have your first orgasm?
Oh my gosh. Like masturbating?
Just orgasm in general. Mine, yeah. I was 4 when I had my first one. So.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. See, I was 10 and I thought I was really young.
Yeah, no, that's another thing that I like to talk about on this because people are always shocked. Yeah, I was 4. And then I had a friend of mine who she actually literally had hers shimmying up the monkey bars at school. And then she said, I shimmied up those monkey bars every single day for the next 3 years and it never happened again, but she never forgot it.
Wow.
Right? So 10's pretty in the game there. Do you feel better
I'm
now?
glad. What?
Do you feel better now?
I was just going to say, I'm glad we're having this conversation because I always thought that was a little bit young. And funny masturbating story. I remember because when I discovered it, I was like, what is this feeling, And it was just me and my hand, but
Right.
But we were living, Wait,
it wasn't a teddy bear after all of that great books that you had read?
No, because that was after. That's when I put the dots together.
Oh, okay.
This is what it's called. I didn't even know what I was doing or what that was,
Right.
But it was so awesome that I was like, okay, every night in bed, this is what we're going to do because this is pretty cool, But I was sharing a room with this woman. And I was like on the bottom bunk thing. And so I was like, maybe I could do it really discreetly and just very, so she won't know. So I'm doing it. And all of a sudden she's like, Janice, are you cold? And I thought I was being super discreet and like not really
rocking the bed, not making that much. Not rustling the sheets.
Oh my gosh. So that's when I was like, yeah, I guess I need to not do this in a room with somebody else.
Right. Yeah. I actually go on a lot of training trips with my friends and we always get separate beds, but it's super fun because when I'm in a strange place, the first thing I do to fall asleep is masturbate. Like and so I have to set everything up just right so that my hand isn't making a little on the sheets.
Wait, this is when you're in the room with other people too?
Yes, it's separate beds, but in the same room. That's how I fall asleep when I'm in a different space. Like that's the thing that relaxes me the most. And yes, yes, if you're my best friend and you're listening to this, I have masturbated next to you multiple times.
Oh my gosh.
Different beds, not when we were sharing the same bed, but when we were in different beds.
That's hilarious.
But I also have this joke that I talk about. Hold on, I'm trying to think of how I usually say it. It's called a power nap. And so I'll set my alarm for 20 minutes. I'll set Siri for 20 minutes. I'll masturbate for 2.5 and I'll sleep for 17.5. And then I'll wake up and I'm like, I'm ready for my day. And so one time we were at this training and there was 4 of us in the room. So I had to share a bed with somebody. And we had been out really late the night before and we had to be up early for training. So at lunchtime, I always run back and try to grab a half an hour nap. Because if I can grab a half an hour, I can go the rest of the day. Like no problems. So I ran back. Everybody else was getting lunch. I ran back, rubbed one off real quick, fell asleep. And then the girls came back in the room and they see me like laying asleep. And the one girl was like, oh no, she's asleep. Let's go back out in the hallway so don't bother her. And another one of them said, do you think she masturbated? And I just started laughing. I'm like, you guys might as well come in. Yeah, I'm awake now. But yes, I did. Thank you.
So now everybody knows if they're going to share a room with you.
100%. And if I've ever slept at your house, I've masturbated in your house. That's how I fall asleep. When I am in a strange room, strange situation, that's how I relax.
Oh my God.
And we're women. So all it takes is a Boy Scout promise and a little rock the boat and ta-da, there we are. There's no muss, no fuss, no nothing. But yeah, I learned that when I was 4. I didn't realize it was an orgasm until much, 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 much later, but that was how I fell asleep, all the time.
Well, and that's interesting because that's like, the sucking the thumb thing. I mean, It could be, that's a method of self-soothing. So,
right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Even when I'm sick, when I'm sick and I have a fever, I will wake up and I'll be rubbing that spot. And I'm like, oh, that's the thing that makes me feel good. Thank you, God, for putting it right there for me. So best orgasm.
Oh my gosh.
Because we know some of them are better than others.
They are. That's true. I would say it's with, my boyfriend.
I would hope so.
Yeah. The recent one though, none of my.
Right.
Not
The
my
one you've been with for 7 years.
Yes. And I can't say one particular time, although like you said, some are just better than others or whatever, but he is very good about just being in tune with me. And he's very much a giver in that sense, where he doesn't take care of himself first or make it all about him, which I so appreciate. But it's interesting because I actually get turned on by him being turned on. It's like we're both that way. So
Right.
it makes it kind of nice because we're both trying to kind of give to each other and be in that space together.
Is he an acts of service? Love language?
Is he?
Yeah.
He's physical touch.
Oh, all right. So that works for him.
So that totally works for him. And what it is I can be completely myself and free and open. And I mean, I could be loud and just like, it's just this beautiful release. And mine are long. So, I mean, I don't know how, I know men's tend to be shorter typically than women's orgasms and stuff.
Right.
But mine will be long. And he's like, oh my gosh, that was a long one. I'm like, I know. And part of it is he knows how to do it with the right pace. Yes. Yeah. It's like really quality.
Right. That's good.
Yes.
Think about that. Like, I mean, I think that sometimes the length versus intensity, I don't multiple. I've never been able to multiple, but my orgasms are long. And I had a girl one time, she's like, oh my God, I had 14 orgasms in 20 minutes. And I'm like, then you're not having the same orgasms I am. Because when I'm done, I'm spent. Like I am on the bed, out of breath, thinking, Jesus Christ, thank you so much for being alive. Like, I mean, there's no, can I get more?
Yeah. I am the same way. And I mean, for me, it'll last a couple days. I can be just.
Yeah. Do you have I call them aftergasms, where you're just minding your own business and you're like, yep, that was part of it.
Yeah. Yes.
Oh, I finally met somebody who's like me. I think we're pretty rare. Like I don't hear too many people that like me, and everybody's like, oh, like I have to have them every day. And I have multiples, and I'm like, that's not how I work. Like I need a good 48-hour reset to rebuild that sucker.
I am exactly the same way. It can be it's too much. And my body's like, no, you're good. You're good for a minute.
You can
mentally too.
A tiny, small, painful one if you want, but you're not going to enjoy it. So why don't you just not do that?
Exactly. Yeah. Nope. We'll wait.
That's so awesome. I've literally never met anybody else who's kind of the same as me in that. How about the worst sex? You have a bad sex story?
Oh my gosh.
This one should not be with your current partner.
No, and it wouldn't be. It's not at all. No, he's amazing. Yeah, I would just say so what happened in my marriage is that my husband went from being a believer to agnostic to an atheist. So he had this whole change of like a paradigm shift. And in that shift, he was all about trying different things, right? And like pleasure, as long as you're not hurting other people. So long story short, he started introducing different things like, hey, watch porn with me. Hey, go to a strip club with me. Hey. And I wasn't comfortable with these things, just me personally.
Right.
But I did them anyway. That's why I say I'm like an award-winning people pleaser, because I gave him all these things that he wanted, but felt like I was betraying myself because it just wasn't in me. So I'm not judging people that do those things. It's just my own thing. So I gave and gave and gave and started resenting that I wasn't enough that we needed to constantly be bringing in other things or going to other places or whatever. And then it turned into an open marriage.
Oh.
So yes, this was kind of the straw that broke the camel's back. That's why I said sex and sexuality for me has all these like other things wrapped in it, because I was like, oh, okay, you want an open marriage? And it was almost like, fine, fucker, I'll give you an open marriage. Like, I was so fed up of not being enough. And I know that comes from his own wounds. Like, now I can differentiate that I am enough,
Right.
that he just wanted to experience other things. And that's separate from me. That doesn't have anything to do with my value, or how good or sexy or cute or whatever I am. So I just gave and gave things that weren't in me to give. And the open marriage was that thing where we tried it for, I think it was like a year and a half, and it was very off and on because I was very hot and cold and like ultimately not comfortable with it. So I kept pulling back, and then he'd get sad, and he's really good with words. He's a very good
wordsmith.
Yes, wordsmith and slight manipulator, but when he wants to be. So I was just in this thing. It was torture, honestly, for about a year and a half. And then I finally said, I need to let you go. Because that was the internal voice I kept hearing, is let him go. But I had made him my life. I had made him my everything. Mm-hmm. So thinking that I had to let him go was just so scary. That was my rock bottom in life. So I even forgot what the question was, but that's
about the worst sex ever.
Oh, so the worst sex, that would be not feeling wanted with my ex-husband and feeling like he's there with me, but he's not there with me, and that he actually wants or wanted something else while we were together. To me, that constitutes the worst feeling. Yeah.
He's just using you.
You feel like, a body.
This one's easy. What's your favorite time of day to have sex?
I don't have a favorite time of day, but I like to feel energetic. So what I can't stand is if my boyfriend and I stay up too late or whatever, and then it's like, oh yeah, let's have sex, and I don't have energy. I hate that, because then I just feel like I'm sluggishly doing something when I'd rather be sleeping, because I love sleeping too.
That's actually why my husband and I switched to afternoon sex, because I hate, like, I'm at the end of when I'm ready for bed, I'm ready for bed. I'm going to do like a half a crossword puzzle and I'm going to fall asleep. I'm one of those people, like, and I know everybody hates me for this, but when I am ready for sleep, I go to bed and I go to sleep. Like, I turn out my light and in a minute I'm out.
Yep.
And so, it was, he likes to read for a little while. And so for a long time, he was working from home one day a week. And that would be the day we would just have afternoon. We would call it our little nooner. We call it nap time. Right. Because I've already trained myself to have an afternoon nap anyway. Right? And so, he'd be like, oh, I'm feeling a little tired. And I'm like, oh, me too. And then but now with COVID, he's home all day, every day. So now we just only have sex in the afternoons. Like,
that's actually a great plan. I think I might have to steal that.
Yeah. And also, like, if I drink, I never want to have sex afterwards now, because I'm just old and I just want to fall asleep. So when we go on cruises and vacations, afternoon sex, we'll have sex before we go to dinner. That way it's already done for the evening. We can just have a good time, get as drunk as we want, and just fall asleep.
Totally. I'm with you.
I'm a big fan of sleeping. It is my favorite thing. Here we go. I want to see what your answer is to this quiz. 95% of the people on here say the same answer. What's your favorite position? She had to think about this one. Do you have to think about it, or you just don't want to say it?
No, it's because it seems very boring.
So you're a fan of just missionary style.
I like Well, there's two. It's like that. I do like missionary style because I can look, I'm a very heart-centered person.
Yes.
And so I love connecting. So to me, what makes sex great is not necessarily the physical pleasure, but the emotional pleasure and connection and intimacy. So looking into somebody's eyes and experiencing that, I would have to say would be my top. One where I feel like more sexual and not more the pleasure part and like the turn on part, but not the connection so much, is like him behind.
Doggy style.
Okay, yes, thank you. Is that what it's called?
Yes. And I would say probably 98% of the people have said doggy style because it's the easiest way to hit your G-spot. And
yes.
Yeah. And so
that is more the like, what would be the term? Not the.
You like to make love. I like that.
Okay, that's the difference. Yeah. That exactly would be the difference. But I like both. It's not like I don't like the other. They're just different.
Yeah.
Like to me, they feel different. Yeah.
Yep. That's funny. Yeah, that's the number one answer. I'm always surprised. There's only been one person who didn't say doggy style. So.
And what was their other answer?
She was a lesbian, so I don't think I remember what position she said, but I was just like, okay, well, I mean, it makes sense.
Right.
But yeah, and you want to know what's weird? I didn't start having doggy style until I was like 10 years ago, and we've been married for 25 years. And then once we discovered it, we were just like, oh, we're going to do it like this all the time now.
Where have you been all my life?
Right, exactly. And it's not every time, but like a good percentage of the time. My husband's like, yep, let's do it this way. Because, really long, strong orgasms. Who doesn't want it? Doesn't want that. Last question. Do you have a favorite sex toy?
My boyfriend's tongue.
Oh, all right. All right.
Because I'm telling you, nothing does it better than that. He's very gifted. I will just say it that way.
You know what? I'm telling you, 100%. That I understand.
Nothing compares.
Nothing compares. Yeah, we like to add a little something into the repertoire. Like I have never, this freaks people out. I have only ever used a sex toy on my own one time. And I threw my back out and I made a comedy skit about it. So I have not done it. Now we have toys, but we use them together. And I'm just like, oh, you're bringing that one out today. The big dogs. Let's go. And then it's not big dogs, but we're like, somebody's having an orgasm today. Guess who it is? It's me. I'm having one.
Oh, you're hilarious.
I'm just weird. That's all. I'm weird and I say shit that makes people laugh. All right. Where can people find you? Like if you want them to.
Yes. So I actually just redid my website. It was SpanishJanice.com, the little tongue twister, but now it's JaniceBurt.com. And I switched it because I'm doing more of the inspirational speaking type of thing. And the Spanish Janice was confusing people. They're like, oh, so you only do inspirational speaking in Spanish.
People are easily confused. I've learned that.
Yeah, my marketing had to be fine-tuned a little bit, but that's where they could find me.
Yeah, I'm in the middle of making, like I went to your website today and I saw like your little sizzle reels, and I'm in the process of making my own. And all of my speaking has been virtual because literally 2 weeks after I started speaking, the world shut down. So I've been speaking and I've spoken on 4 different topics and I've got tons of video of me speaking, but from this seat.
Yep.
And it's real hard to make a sizzle reel when you're not moving around.
I hear you. I actually just went to a speaker's retreat in person in New Orleans. So it's starting to open up again. So look for those opportunities because those are great for, photo ops and stuff like that with an actual audience. And
yeah. I have some, a month before the country shut down, I did a live comedy show, and I do have some photos from that one, but it was obviously more focused on me than the audience. So you can really only see the front row. You can't see that it was 120 seat theater. And also I always just think I look fat in all my pictures. So that's hard too.
No, it's the worst.
I know it. I also have a very crooked spine, which you can't see when we're sitting here looking like this. But if you take a photo of me from the back, I look like kind of like the Hunchback of Notre Dame. So
Is it
really,
actual scoliosis?
yeah,
Yeah.
26-degree spiral curvature of the spine. And so from the back, you know, like I have one picture from one of my shows because my husband snapped some photos and I was like, look at this. And he's like, no, that's just the angle. And I'm like, no, that's my spine. Like, that's what it looks like. So it's really hard to get good pictures of me. So, all right.
Yeah.
So you can find me on Instagram at Stand Up Comedy Sex Ed. You can also find me at standupcomedysexed.com and RayleneTaskoski.com. That's my speaker website. I've also have a Facebook group set up just for this podcast, so you can participate in polls, ask questions, politely share an alternate point of view, and generally let us know what you think of this episode and any other episode. So search for Stand Up Comedy Sex Ed Podcast on Facebook. Please subscribe to the podcast wherever you listen to podcasts. Share it with your friends, and you could Google how to leave a review on Apple. I don't know why they make it so damn hard to figure it out, but you got to really search to leave a review on Apple. Leave me one. And then you can also buy me a coffee by going to buymeacoffee.com/Raylene to help me keep paying for this, because I have about 3 more episodes before I have to renew my podcasting subscription and my Zoom. So every $5 helps. Thank you so much, Janice, for being on the show. It was a pleasure talking to you, and I hope that you can spend the rest of the day blushing, but you're not too upset by what you've done.
Going, oh my God, what did we just talk about? No, that was awesome. I
all that.
I loved it. I loved our combo, and I love you and your authenticity and showing up big in the world. It's amazing.
Thank you. All right. I'll talk to you soon. Bye-bye.